Hey everybody, Brian here to talk about the games I beat in May and June of 2020. Um, I really felt like playing Dragon Quest XI again, so all of May was basically me playing Dragon Quest XI again. This time on with the draconian option of stronger monsters on, and that makes the game really, really hard. You have to really plan your strategy against the bosses. So I put all of May into this game, about 300 hours into it. Got everything I could, every item. I crafted every item to its max. I, I charted every monster. I got every piece of equipment, bought every item, maxed out, got everything, and did everything you could possibly do except for a few of the accolades. I got to tell you, this game is amazing. Even during those 300 hours, this is now the. I played it once on PS4, put 200 hours in it, 200 or more hours in it. I played it again on Switch in 2D mode. I put about 200, 300 hours in it. And then again, I played it on the Switch with Stronger Monsters enabled and put 300 hours in it. So I played this game 3 times for at least 200 hours each time. The Stronger Monsters mode made the game a lot more, made the game more replayable because the first time you play it, it's very easy. The second time with Stronger Monsters on, it was very hard. I had to really restrain my strategies, and I died multiple times. There was bosses, the Slayer of the Sands, I died on like 10 times, or 5 or 6 times. Um, the Elysium Birds I had a hard time with. Mortigan, the last boss, I had a hard time with. Klasmos, the true boss, I didn't have too much time because I was very high leveled. But the super boss in this game, I won't spoil it, but it took me, I beat him on 2D mode, and it took me an insane amount of time. This time with Stronger Monsters on, it was insanely difficult. The boss was not, could deal lots of damage, and because Stronger Monsters are even stronger, that damage was even more. You had to really think your equipment. I had to take elementals into effect. In fact, I had to take out armor that I usually use for the boss and use stuff that was less defense but more elemental protection because he can use all the elements. I had to craft elemental protection items. I had to plan my strategies of what to use. So for the final boss, what I ended up doing, the true final boss, is I ended up, the first time I beat him, I did beat him twice, and you get an accolade for beating him once, and then there's 2 more accolades if you beat him fast. What I had to do was I had to raise all my characters to 999 HP with HP seeds. Then I made exotogas, which are these robes that provide 25% elemental damage protection. I put that for all the characters who could use them. I used any other character that couldn't use them. I had elemental protection gear on. And then on the accessory slots, I had to use Lucky Dragon's Wings, Sovereign Seals, or Venus Tears. And what those do is they provide an additional 40% protection for Lucky Dragon's Wings. You have boom spells, which are light-based, like boom, bang, which that boss uses. Sovereign Seals, which are ice and dark, which that boss uses 40% protection. And the Venus Tears, not as much. He does use a crazy strong electrical attack that provides against wind and storm and lightning protection. So for all my main damage dealers, I put, with higher HP, I put Lucky Dragon's Wings and Sovereign Seals to give an additional 40% against ice and darkness, as well as boom, bang, light-based spells, and fire-based spells. That gives 40% against that. Then they had the Exotogas, which was another 25%, so that took the damage down to 40, 50, 65% at least for all the elemental damages. For my casters, I went with one of those, so either Lucky Dragon's Wings or Sovereign Seals, and I went with a Elfin Elixir, which provides protection against MP draining and status stopping your abilities and stuff like that, because that boss did have an ability to stop the casters from casting, so I wanted some protection against that. It gives 50% against that. So then what I did was I put Solando in, and he has a move called Ladies First. I would pass it off to Veronica and have her use the what was that? The Sizzle, which was her highest base element or elemental fire base damage. So I'd have her channel anger, then I'd have which increases that damage, and I'd have Sylvando go back to her in the same round, give her his turn to her, and then she casts that spell, and it would do a steady amount of damage, around 1,000, 1,500 damage with just that spell. Now that was during the times when I could cast spells, because during the times where I couldn't, when he had that mist up, I would switch to damage dealers, and I would have Eric do Divide, and then do Fatal Flash on him to get him. And then when the mist would clear, I'd bring in Veronica and use that ladies first, passing my abilities, so she could get a Channel Anger and a spell off in the same round. Because you want to do as much damage as you can to negate the healing that you have to do, because you got to do a lot of healing. So you'll get in this rhythm of you'll heal and you won't do damage. So you want to do damage fast and then heal when it's appropriate. You don't want to spend all your time healing. That's easier said than done. Then when I would really be in trouble, when he'd kill all my party members, I'd bring in Hendrik or Serena, and I'd have them do the move where they kill themselves and resurrect everybody else. So it kills them, but it brings everybody back up to full HP and MP. And during that time, I'd have Hendrik cast Kabuff when possible, and I'd have also the Benevolence, the item you get, which is a free magic barrier. I'd have somebody use that, and I also have Hendrik use magic barrier, because the boss likes to toss out a lot of oomphs on himself, and also magic barriers, and magic decreases to your party, so you want to keep that at least even, otherwise you'll be taking much more damage. That's why the elemental protection was so important, because you can't always do a magic barrier. You got to deal damage, and sometimes you'll have like your magic defense down to 2, and without that extra 65% elemental damage I have on everybody, that's just too much damage. I can't overheal that and do damage at the same time. So I had to have that protection guaranteed. Have Hendrik do that as when necessary, and when things got really bad, I'd have him Veronica or not Veronica, Serena or Hendrik do Kamikaze, or which I think that's what it's called, which kills themselves and resurrects everybody else. And I'd have, whenever Veronica ran on MP, I'd have somebody use an Elfin Elixir on her. Now the second stage, when they both come out, it gets insanely difficult, because one will be in the background buffing the other one, and they'll also cast like a spell in the back. So during that part, it's possible that you get wiped out and your plans changes and you got to heal. And that's when I'd have to use the Kamikaze to bring everybody back. During that part, I would bring, I would switch Eric to Boomerangs and have him use, when possible, do the double down. If I could get an oomph off with him in the same round, I would. Otherwise, I'd have to just have him divide and do double down to do enough damage to both of them. And I'd have Veronica try to do the cast Kaboomal when possible to get both of them, because I want to do as much damage as possible equally to them. And then when the one on the left was about to die, I'd kill him first, because the one on the right could resurrect the one on the left, or the one on the left would resurrect the one on the right, so you want to kill the one on the left first. So I had to make sure I killed that one on the left off first, and I would focus on nailing him. And once he's down, and you're still not out of the woods, because the one on the right will go crazy. I think he gets like 4 turns, I think he gets. So then you gotta really concentrate. But it was the hardest boss fight I ever fought, up there with the Octopath Traveler one. And then just recently this month, I went back. During the whole June, I would also raise my strength of every character up to 999. So I finally did that. I got all my characters up to 999 strength. So now I went back and I fought him, and I beat him again, but this time I focused on as much damage as possible quickly. So I just attack as quick as possible, as much as I could. And I did beat him a lot easier this time, because my attackers were dealing a lot more damage. But it still took me like 56 turns, and I got the accolade for beating him with with over 50 turns under 100. So I got like the second best accolade. There is one I read for beating under 50, which I might try again. But I tell you, that boss is insanely difficult on stronger monsters. Even on normal, beating him is an accomplishment. I just did it. I thought I'd never try him again, but I love Dragon Quest XI so much. I love everything about that game that I wanted to go back and fight him again. So I raised, my strength seeds by farming strength seeds, strength and HP seeds, and it made it a lot easier. So yeah, Dragon Quest XI, the hardest Dragon Quest game I played on stronger monsters. It's no joke. If you haven't played a Dragon Quest game, play this one. It's amazing. It's one of my favorite games ever. I think I'll play it every year now. I think I'm looking forward to playing it again next year for another 200 hours. It's just amazing. So yeah, that's all I played in May. Did I say May? Yeah, May is all I played was Dragon Quest XI-S. And then after that, I wanted to play. I was in the mood for more Dragon Quest, so I played again. This is my second time playing through the DS version of Dragon Quest V. This is a great game too. I only played it once, and that was 2 years ago. And I liked it. This time I liked it a lot more because I was still in the mood of Dragon Quest games, and I could follow along the story better. I think the first time I played, I was kind of rushing through it, and that's not how you want to play Dragon Quest games. You want to take your time, really enjoy them. And this has really bumped its place up in my top Dragon Quests now. I still like 4 a little bit better, but I think this is maybe taken over a spot, and maybe for 7 for me, just because this is a lot shorter game than 7. 7 is great. I love 7. It's a lot longer of a commitment to get through unless you play it. When I played it on the 3DS, I got through it a lot faster than when I played it on the PlayStation. But I still love 7. I shouldn't rank these because they're all great. All the Dragon Quest games are great. So I don't want to say that for sure. But 5 is a very shorter RPG. It was only like 40 hours for me. You can get it through it on like 30 or 25 if you're quick, I think. But I take my time with these. It has multiple generations. So you start out as a kid, you meet Bianca, your friend that you met in the beginning, and you go on an adventure with her. Then you get your dad. This is spoilers for Dragon Quest V. So if you don't want to know, so it follows him. You're with your dad looking for your mom, but you don't know that you're looking for your mom. And then you meet Bianca, your friend. And then you go on a quest with her, and then you leave. You and your dad leave again. He gets summoned to a castle in Cogburg to rescue the prince who was kidnapped. You go there. Your dad gets killed by you think is the big bad guy, Lodja. You get sold into slavery by Lodja to build this tower for this cult. I forget the name of them. Zugzwags or something. And then you escape with that prince in a barrel, and you wash up into this little church, and the sisters there take care of you. You go back to Cogburg, and you have to get the magic mirror, the Mirror of Ra, which is a reoccurring item in Dragon Quest games since Dragon Warrior 3, I want to say. Or maybe it was it was on 2 as well, because you needed it for the clown. I think it was on Dragon Warrior 2 it made an appearance, Dragon Quest 2. You get the mirror, you go back to Cogburg, you use the mirror, you save the Kingdom of Cogburg from the clone queen there, who's actually a monster. You reinstate the king there under advisor of Prince Harry, who you were a slave with, that your father and him went to save. Then after that, you travel the world. You go back to, so this is when you're a teenager, like 16. You go back to the town where you and your dad first arrived, or near there, the area where you and your dad first arrived. You hear that there's a legendary hero. You find in your hometown, you find the sword, the Zenithian sword, which is a part of the magic gear that the hero is supposed to use. And there's a note that says, your father says, if you read this, I'm dead. I've been looking for your mother that whole time. That's why you were traveling with me. If I die, take up the Zenithian sword. Find the other 3 pieces, the helmet, the shield, and the armor. Find the Zenithian hero. Your mom is trapped by the evil warlord. He's the only one that could save her, so that's your new quest. So you set out, you hear about, there's the shield in the town, and you meet, it's held by this guy named Briscoletti. You go there, and you find out that his daughter is Bianca, the girl that you went on the quest with when you were 6. You go there, and they say, if you get the circle of water and circle of fire, then you can marry Bianca and you get the shield. So you do that, you get the shield, you pick from either Bianca to marry, or I think her name's Flora or Nera in the DS release. You can pick between those 2. The first time, and there's also a third option in the DS game, which is the Deborah. She's like the really, she's the funny dialogue because she's always insulting to you. She's terrible to you, but she's also very funny. So I picked her the first time I played it. This time I picked Nera in my second playthrough. And when I play it again next year or so, I'll pick Bianca. The game kind of pushes you towards Bianca as the obvious choice, but I didn't want it. I wanted to pick against that, so I picked the opposite of Nera, or Deborah, the first time I played it 2 years ago, and this time I picked Nera this time. And next time I play, I'll pick the obvious choice of Bianca. So each one of them has different abilities. Like Deborah, when I played her, I kind of remember her. She had more offensive abilities. She could use like fans. She had some equipment that she could use that others couldn't. So Deborah was more magical. And I think Bianca, I don't know the difference between Bianca and Deborah, or Bianca and Nera, because I haven't played as Bianca, but Bianca was more magical, kind of weaker, and Deborah was more powerful attacker with some support magic and some spells. So after that, you marry, and you find out you have kids, and it ends there. The third part starts where monsters come in, and they kidnap your wife. They find out she's like part of the Zenithian line that could help resurrect the Dark Lord that they're trying to resurrect. But the maid hides the kids under the bed, and I'm trying to remember, after that, what happens? You get turned to stone. I forget how exactly. You get turned to stone, and you, I can't remember, and it was only a month I played it. Time passes after that, and your kids, it comes to a cutscene, you see time passing in a really unique way. You get sold to an art collector, and he buys your statue. And then it shows like the seasons coming, and their son gets kidnapped by monsters, and they think you're bad luck. It shows them kicking you, and it shows the seasons coming down, so he neglects you because he thinks you're bad luck because his son was kidnapped by the monsters into slavery. And then you finally gets to a cutscene years later, so you're like your 20s now, and your kids are kind of in their 10 or 11, and they come to save you with Sancho, your housekeeper, butler kind of friend, your dad, who is really loyal to you, and he comes with his kids, and they unstone you with the staff of, I forget the name of the staff, but it unstones you. You meet your kids, and now they can be part of your party. And you find out, hey, your kid can equip this legendary sword because he is the hero that your dad was looking for. And the monsters didn't find him because they hid them when they kidnapped your wife, Nera, Bianca, or Deborah. So then you want to find the other pieces of the equipment. I think you found them in the last... No, you want to find the other pieces, so you find the helmet, which was in Helmet, and in like an Egyptian town. And you went there before, you couldn't... The lady there, the Cleopatra knockoff, I forget her pun name on Cleopatra, could not... You tried to, like... equipped it, you couldn't, and then you thought nothing of it, so you're not the legendary hero. And your son comes back, and he tries it on, and it fits his head, so he is the legendary hero. That's how you find out. And then you get the helmet, you get the armor, and then you have all the pieces. You have the shield, the helmet, the armor, and the sword, and then you can go fight the bad guy, and you can pick Now, the first time I played it, my party, because you can get monsters to recruit. I think my party I picked. Oh, I forgot. Then you travel, you find your mom, your wife, you undo her to stone, then you can pick her as your party member. So the final act, you can have the main hero, which is the guy you start with, the guy in the turban that you see there. You can have your son and daughter. The son's the legendary hero that can equip the Zenithian armor. And you can have your daughter, Mad Chen. She's like a magician with powerful magical spells. And then for your fourth, you can have either a monster, or you can use Sancho, which is like a kind of a tanky paladin. So think like a cross between Dragon Quest, like a merchant and a cleric. But he can take a lot of hits. He has high HP. And the first time I played, I didn't play him. I used the hero, the legendary hero, or your son and daughter, and then I used my wife. This time I used Sancho, me, and my kids. And I really like Sancho a lot. I recommend like playing with him because he has some good party dialogue, and it's just endearing that he's like still loyal to you and your father. If you don't want to pick him, there's also a second recruitable character called Tuppence, which is a paladin, a straight like kind of a cross between a paladin or priest and a soldier who uses spears. So I haven't tried him. I think next year I'm going to try him. And you can also have recruitable monsters. There's like slimes. I took with me on this one. I had a little monster that could cast like dances and spells that put people to sleep, which is very helpful. Sleep and Fuddle, which I used a lot in the early games to put people to sleep and confuse them, so I could attack them, beat them easily without upgrading my equipment a lot. What else? Yeah, that's it. I mean, it's just a great story. It's a great game. I highly recommend you play it. I'm currently playing Dragon Quest VI again. This will be my second time playing it. I'm really enjoying that one a lot more than when I first played it. I'll talk about that in my next video probably. So yeah, it's been a lot. May was a huge Dragon Quest month, and it still continues to be Dragon Quest month. Love Dragon Quest, one of my favorite series. And play Dragon Quest 11 or 6 if you can pick. Dragon Quest 11 or Dragon Quest 5 if you can play them. They're awesome games. Okay, so that was May. So in June when I finished those up, I think I was playing also this game, Shining Force, as I was playing Dragon Quest V. Shining Force, my friend had this game growing up, and I remember him playing it. I couldn't really understand it. It's a strategy RPG, which means it's like chess, and you move your pieces, and you get characters. There's a lot of characters in this game, so basically think of a cross between Dragon Warrior, between battles you can move to different towns and find items and stuff, and then you go move the story along, and then it goes to like a kind of strategy RPG, like Fire Emblem kind of battle. The graphics are really great. The battles are like full screen. You can't really see it, but they're like full screen, like awesome artwork. See that those 3 pictures of the battles. It goes to these like cool like battle sequences. And I really wanted to beat one of these because I remember being very confused about this game growing up, and I had a hard time getting into it until I learned how to play it. I did beat it, and I enjoyed it a lot. I really, really liked it. Not as much as the second game, which I'll get to soon, but I did like it. The music is outstanding. You get a ton of characters, and the thing is they don't level up, like all of them don't level up at the same time, so only the ones in your party fighting level up. So I got into the mistake when I'm playing this of not leveling up everybody equally, so when I wanted to use a different character, they were too weak to use unless I grinded with them. So that was kind of disappointing. So I recommend if you play this game, try each character at least once and see if you do want to use them and then concentrate on those characters, because there were some I'd like to use, but I ended up they were too weak to use without grinding. And you can fight and get experience, so the characters that they get experience from healing, I think healers get experience from healing, either with herbs or magic, I don't know. and in attacking you get experience. And if you beat an enemy, you get lots of experience. So you want to kind of... It's easy to get into the trap of the strongest guys just wipe everybody out and get all the experience. But that can kind of hinder you in that you're kind of handicapped with using those guys. So if you want to use other people, I recommend you weaken them with the stronger guys and then bring in the weaker guys to finish them off to get the giant XP experience and level them up quicker. And then when you get to down the last guy, you can evac out of the battle and redo it and do that until they're back up to a stronger level if you want to. Yeah, Shining Force is a game that very nostalgic, even though I didn't have it and I only watched my friend play it. And I'm very happy I did beat it. And it got this was the second Shining game I played. The first being Shining in the Holy Ark, which I talked about on a recent video for the Saturn. And I really liked that game. It was a dungeon crawler, first-person RPG. The only Saturn game I ever really beat. The first Saturn game I actually put a lot of time into and beat. Really liked that. And I'm glad I finally played and beat Shining Force. This is a very replayable game, I think, now that I know how to play it and what to do. I can try other characters, because I missed a ton of hidden characters. I found, the only one I really found was a ninja at the end, which I really liked and I used. But it's to this game's credit that even a new guy like me playing it, I struggled with what to do, but I still was able to finish it, and I had a fun time playing it. So that's Shining Force. So after that, I wanted to play some more once I got into, okay, this is kind of cool. So I started Shining Force 2. This one I liked more than the first one. I think that has to do with I knew how to play it. And I did like the story. The graphics were a little bit better, I thought. The music was a lot cheerier. It's debatable if you like Shining Force 1's music better or 2. I like both of them, but this music was great too. The characters, you play as the main character named Bowie. The first guy was Max. You have characters that are with you at the beginning. I kind of tended to use those 3 characters just because I felt that was the canon story, but you don't have to. Some of the improvements, the inventory is better. I think they have like a caravan which you can store extra inventory, because the one main bad thing about the Shining games is you only have a fixed character slot of, I think, 4 slots. And that's your weapon, and then you have 3 other slots, and that can be used very much. In the first Shining Force, you had to either sell that item back you didn't want to carry, you could buy it back later, but you had to sell it to get an inventory slot. In this one, they have like a caravan where you can dump an unlimited number of items that you're not using into that caravan. It's like this little wagon that miniaturizes, and that was a cool feature. I think they added random battles on a map screen, which is kind of cool, because the recruitment, which I forgot to talk about, on Shining Force is level 10, where at this level you can recruit and you change class. Your stats will increase higher whenever you gain levels afterwards, but you'll take a smaller hit. You'll take a small hit in your stats at the point. This one, it's level 20, and you don't take a hit on your stats when you do that. And then after that, they increase more with a higher potential. So you want to recruit. The first time playing through, I recruited on Shining Force. I recruited right away, and that makes the game easier at first, but harder at the end. I think, or I could be confused. Well, anyway, I'm not sure, so I'm not going to say for sure. But on this one, it's level 20 you recruit, and the farther you wait to recruit, the I've heard the stronger they get, but I kind of went to recruiting everybody at like 26 or something like that I could. Because you don't want to recruit everyone right away, or you can. And then you can pick between like, and this has like, you can pick between like a knight becomes a bow archer, and then a paladin becomes, or a warrior becomes a paladin. And if you've had, much like Sekida Sensu 3, which I played last year and I loved, if you find a hidden item, they can upgrade to a different like class. So if you find a hidden item and they use it, they can increase. Certain characters can upgrade to another class. So like a warrior class can upgrade to a paladin, or if they have an item, they can upgrade to a baron, which has I think I forget what the difference between a Baron and Paladin is, but there are differences between those. Let's see. I really like the music in this one. Um, it's just a fun game. It eases you into it because I was concerned with playing Shining Force. Like, I'm not good at strategy, turn-based strategy games. It doesn't have permadeath, which is great. So you can like penalty for dying is very minimal. Like, you lose half your gold, but you gain all your experience. So if you keep throwing yourself at it, you'll eventually beat it, much like Dragon Quest, which is nice. But it eases you into it very well. It throws a lot of characters. There's like 10, 20, 32 characters or something. And that can seem like a lot, but it gradually increases the number of characters you have. It's very, very friendly, more beginner friendly. If I had to pick one of these to play, for somebody, this is speaking out of somebody who's not nostalgic for either of these, I would say the second one is the one I go for, much because it's more, has some improvements to the inventory, and I think it eases you into the game better. But you can't go wrong with either of these. I think they're easily available on classic collections. But yeah, Shining Force, I'm glad I finally beat these two games. After that, I wanted to play some more Shining games, so I played Shining in the Darkness, and in my other video I mentioned, in this video also, I mentioned Shining the Holy Ark, which is a Saturn game. This is the sequel to that. This is a first-person dungeon crawling game. Think Wizardry, if you're familiar. Like, you see, like, in front of you, seeing the world, and unlike those, though, this is much more friendly, except for one feature where you don't have a map. It doesn't auto-map like Shining in the Darkness. Shining in the Darkness has a map that auto-fills in as you walk. This, you don't know, unless you get a spell that lets you view it, but then it goes away. So you can view it, write it down, and then it'll go away. And that costs MP, like 1 MP. And during the later stages of the game, when I had more MP, I'd use that more, and it was very easy to get around much more. And I also used, while this game was up, I used a map of it, so I could find out where everything was, and it had it mapped out, so that cut down a lot of my time. Otherwise, you'd be mapping out the dungeons until you get enough MP for that spell to use. Even though it costs 1 MP, you want to use it so much that it would suck up a lot of MP. So this game has the typical Shining look. The monsters are a little different than these other Shining games. They're a little different designs. The music's great. It's very addicting leveling up. So you start out and you're the hero. Who I called Hero. I think that's his canon name, is Hero. And the princess is kidnapped. And you find out your father was with her and they go missing. So you dive into this dungeon and you have to go through 4 labyrinths: strength, courage, wisdom, and I forget the other one. And then once you do that, it opens the key to the other dungeon. And you have to go into the dungeon true, and there's like 5 floors to it. And each time you can go, so you start out, you're very weak, and you go and you can fight, get a few levels, and you got to go out and save. Then you go back in, you go a little further, fight, save, levels. Keep going, going. It's very addictive. And then you eventually get, like much, right after you get the first boss, you go back and he says, oh, you find her tiara, and you go, oh, take some adventures with you. She went into the dungeon, and we found her tiara, and then go back into the dungeon and try to find out more. So you meet your friends Milo, who's like a paladin, has heal magic and some buff magic, and Pyra, who's a mage. And they come with you. That's your 3 party members. So you have to start. They start out at level 1. You're like a level 8. So you have to buy equipment for them, go back in, go back out, keep leveling them up. So it's a very addictive loop, which I like on RPGs. About you start out weak, you get stronger, you go back out, come back in, get stronger and stronger, and you have to do that for all the labyrinths. So if that's something you'd like, then I say this game is amazing. I recommend, if you like mapping out dungeon maps, then don't use a map. It'll take you longer, but you'll get a lot out of it. I used a map to know the dungeon layouts, which made the game a lot easier. Without that, it would be harder. But it was very addicting to me, just mapping out dungeons is not something I like to do, so I appreciate it if it has an auto map feature. So having the fun to me of this game was the loop, addicting loop of getting a little further into dungeon, getting treasure. Oh, can I get that treasure before can I risk it and get that treasure, or I die and lose half my gold and I have to go back to it. And then knowing when to zoom out, evac out, and then go back in is very addicting. It was a very rewarding game and a very, 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 I think it's a cheap game. Early Genesis game, 1991, I think. The first Shining game, very, very good. So that I beat 4 Shining games. There's also Shining Force 3 for the Saturn, and there's the Shining Force remake on the Game Boy Advance, which I haven't played it. There's also the Game Boy Advance Shining Soul, and I think there's another Shining game on the Game Boy Advance, but I haven't played those yet. But I'm really, really, really a fan of the Shining games now. Games that I think I will replay every once in a while, because they are very replayable. Maybe not the first, and maybe not Shining in the Darkness, but Shining Force 2 and 3 are very replayable. What else? Okay, the latest game I beat was for the NES, and that is Shatterhand. And this game is very, very, very good. See if I can focus here. Oh well. So Shatterhand is basically as a guy who gets his hands cut off, and you get cybernetically enhanced hands, and you punch things with these hands. So if bullets come out, you can punch them and you can break the bullet, and you have to use that later on in the parts where you have to jump up and punch to get up to a platform without taking a hit to punch a bullet away. You have these little containers. Let's see if I can focus this here. So you have these little containers that you hit in boxes, and they give you an alpha or beta symbol, and you have 3 slots to hold them. So depending on what you get up, like alpha, beta, beta is a different weapon than alpha, beta, alpha. I think there are 8 different weapons you can get depending on what you get. I don't think I still found them all, but there's one that's like a grenade that shoots downward in the diagonal, and is very good that I had to use on the one boss. It's also one that's like a flamethrower that you hold in the button. It does this like flamethrower, I think like Contra, but a lot slower. Like Contra 3, but a lot slower, like that flame attack. You can like wiggle it around. And the bot hovers above you, and he can take damage and destroy himself. There's also like a laser that shoots at a diagonal. There's like a sword that the guy turns to. The little robot has a sword that he attacks when you attack. Almost like the Ninja Gaiden 2 Shadows, but not as controllable. What else? And there's one that throws like these little like frisbee discs that bounce all around, which is kind of cool. And if you connect the same combination of characters, alpha and beta, again, you'll turn into this for 20 seconds, I think, or 15, 20 seconds. You turn into a unstoppable, not unstoppable, but this metal mech armored guy that can throw this fireball. It's very, very powerful. That if you get it at the right time, you can just shred through bosses very easily, or at least get them down very quickly and finish them off easily. And when you take hit, it takes away a second off of that. They're not quite as short as seconds, but you kind of want to rush and get to as far as you can with that before the time runs out and you get back to normal. There's also these little pads that cost money, and when you beat enemies, you get money. And so there's a power with a P, which gives you a red vest. It's like 100 or 200 tokens or coins, and that'll like double your attack power, I think. Double or quadruple, I forget. I think it's at least double. And then there's another one that refills your health with a little health medic symbol. And there's one that says EX for an extra life. And so you want to beat enemies, and you get, it's very well designed in that you're never hurting when you say, oh, I could use some help. There's usually, if you can kill enemies and stay alive, you can find a medical station to get healed up. Very well designed. Just the fact that I haven't found, I think, all the combinations. Use the best combinations to beat the bosses of weapons. It's very unlimited continues. It's very fair. It's a challenging game, but not so challenging that you can't beat it. Very, very fair with its checkpoints. Very, very fair as it has unlimited continues, and very, very, very addictive. One of the best NES games that I've played in a while. Of course, I say that all the time because I love the NES, but this is right up there now with one of my favorite of these types of games, like plays Project Doom, Ninja Gaiden, Batman, um, and those type of side-scrolling like action games. Um, very, very fun. Very replayable too. Not very long. There's the intro stage A, and then there's B through F, and then there's a fifth, 1, 2, 3, 4, seventh stage, which is the longest and hardest. But once you get through a certain part, it'll checkpoint you, and then even if you die and continue, it'll take you back to that checkpoint, which is over half of the stage. So you don't have to do the first half over again. So it's very, 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 very fair. And I beat it, I think, it was hard, but I beat it the third time I put the game in and played. So, granted, I played a lot of NES games, but I'm not the best, speed player at these games. But if you can memorize patterns and know what's coming, it's fair enough that you can get through it, and very replayable. Once you get through, I played it through most of the way again, and I'm thinking about just talking about playing it again. That's how much I like it. So Shatterhand, I think the next one, so what I'm playing currently, I'll talk about. I don't want to say, well, I'll save that for the next video. So yeah, everybody, anyways, that's what I beat for May and June of 2020. Hope everybody has a great summer, and I'll see you next video. Take care. Bye.